a definition, let's say more than one, of smart city. And now joining me two people who will help us in understand how to become a smart city, let's hope, please. So, Karen Farbridge, former mayor, City of Guelph in Canada. Paolo Testa, director of Smart City Observatory of the Association of Italian Municipalities. Welcome you both.
Thank you.
Karen, so you served as a mayor for 11 years, isn't it? So, could you tell us a little bit on what did you do and how your city was trying to become, or it is, a smart city? Please.
Thank you. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. As I was thinking about what I would introduce into the conversation this morning, I was reminded about how much optimism and inspiration that I get learning how other cities are becoming smart and addressing sustainability and improving quality of life for their communities, sometimes against incredible odds in achieving that. And so my city is no different. It's had its share of successes and innovative approaches, and still has lots of challenges and lots to learn and lots to integrate into our community to continue to address the issue of how do we remain sustainable and ensure the well-being of our community. Because I think we heard earlier in the first session, it's constantly changing. So there's never an end point that you can say you can get to. It's a constantly changing arena. My city is 130,000 people, just to give you a sense of that. I think small cities like that have an ability to test some things that are perhaps a little bit more challenging in a larger city, and then can be scaled up and replicated. And you saw the map that Jennifer provided showing the green belt. My city is just on the outside of the green belt, so that provides different challenges being on the other side of the green belt. To start, I think there are many reasons why we should be paying a lot of attention to cities. And you heard in the introductions about how quickly we're urbanizing as a planet. And by mid-century, more than 2/3 of people will be living in cities around the globe. I think it's the pace of change that is remarkable. So for a very young country like Canada, which was founded in 1867, we have, at that point, 20% of our population lived in cities. Today it's over 80%. That's a very significant change in a short period of time. And living, urbanism and living in an urban environment creates very different needs and aspirations. And so people live and work and play and socialize in very different ways. And so it needs different products and services and systems to be able to support that. And history has shown us that when a civilization dies, its cities die. And what the roots of that is that those cities have lived beyond the limits of their natural resources. And so the question is, will our cities get it right moving forward and tackle these issues? There's a couple of other reasons, though, I think, as well. We've seen with global transportation and the internet, we're removing geographic barriers for people to move around, and we're seeing that in our cities. And so people can choose where they live more than ever today. And so we're seeing cities being the engine of development and progress, the engines of the economy. Immigrants come to cities. My city is a gateway for new Canadians and newcomers to Canada. Entrepreneurs locate in city, growth and opportunity is in cities. And so place matters more than ever. Despite the globalization that's occurred, places matter more than ever. So great cities, great places. And then I have observed over the last 2 decades or so being in municipal politics, how much more cities are in competition with each other for talent and for investment. My role as a city in the last few years was completely different than my role as a mayor, completely different than it was at the beginning. When countries compete against each other, it can get kind of ugly at times. But when cities compete, they raise the bar for everybody. Because what you do is you find better ways to invest in your infrastructure. You find different ways to support quality of life. And so it raises the bar for everybody. So we all gain when cities compete with one another. And I think cities are demonstrating that they're very agile in addressing social issues and global issues. They also share a lot, and this is a great example of that. We learn from each other. And there isn't a single success we've had in my city that hasn't been informed by other cities, whether it's in Canada or around the world as well. And then the final comment why I think cities are very important today is the transition to the digital era is actually pushing things local. It's replacing old paradigms of isolation with independence, scarcity with abundance, collaboration is replacing control, sharing of information instead of hoarding. Those are really local community values that we've always lived. And so we're seeing an advantage with that. But also, as we move to more distributed ways of working and thinking, it is empowering local solutions to global issues. And you can see that in issues of food. We had the comment earlier about urban agriculture. You can see that in food. You can see that in energy. I know we'll hear some things around energy today as well. And so I'm seeing this incredible opportunity at the local level to tackle some of these issues. And so just a few comments about the evolution of thinking in my community around smart cities and the way that we've been discussing it. My community was very impacted by the Brundtland Commission in the late 1980s and the concept of sustainable development. And it was clear to us then that the scale of issues that we were dealing with were beyond one sector, beyond one jurisdiction. And so we began experimenting with roundtables at that time. And there was an established roundtable on the environment and the economy. And that really set the groundwork of developing relationships across sectors. So there was business people in the room, there was government in the room, there was academia in the room. And it began to develop the relationships so that we could start to begin that process of integration of ideas and systems. The initial wave of that led to a lot of focus on how we used resources. And I'll give you one example. The thinking led to extensive work on how we used water. And so for the last 20 years, our city has completely decoupled, separated our water use from our population growth. So as our population has increased, our water use continues to go down. So we've been working to replicate that around how we use land, how we use energy. Those are the areas that we've been most successful. Transportation, no success there at all. It just, the faster the population grows, even faster the use of cars. So lots of challenges in that area. So that was the beginnings of our journey, those roundtables, and we've built on that to increase our community's ability to collaborate across sectors and integrating sustainability principles into what we do. And it became, for us, balancing economic opportunity and prosperity, social justice and well-being, environmental stewardship and sustainability, as well as culture and heritage. And I think that is in itself a disruptive idea, sustainability, is the integration that requires and the whole system thinking that we heard about earlier that we need. And very disruptive in terms of the existing systems that we have. Our practice has evolved and more recently to embrace what we call a collective impact approach. So it is pursuing a commitment of key actors across a community to a common agenda to solve specific challenges. And so that thinking has informed very recently what we call open government. And that's just a term that we're really using for our strategy to transition to a digital age. And there's 4 pillars of that. And I think taking a comprehensive approach has been very worthwhile for us. So there is open data. Technology is part of it, but it's a tool. There's open engagement. So participate by nature. That is going to be, I think, one of the biggest challenge is it's not just about government changing. Our citizens have to change in their expectations and in their role in building communities. A third pillar is open governance, and so really looking about how we govern as a local government, and then access to information is the 4th pillar. And so I'll just give 2 examples to close, if that's okay. In 2002, we invited the community to co-produce a set of sustainability principles that would guide our growth of the city. And so at that time, we engaged over 1,000 people in that. So for a city of our size, that's a significant number of people, especially because it wasn't about fighting something, it was about forward thinking about our community. And so we used a number of techniques to engage people in that. No technology at all. We didn't have the technological platforms then. It was about going out to people, engaging them in place. And so now those principles have been integrated into our growth and development strategies. And so they inform our decision making today. And then last year, as part of our open government strategy, we established a civic innovation lab. And so what that does is it actually invites people into City Hall, into the silo, and starts to break down the silo from the inside out. And it's really a throwback to the roundtables of the 1990s. It's bringing together people from various sectors and people who have direct frontline experience with particular issues in the community, and provides a space for people to work together to identify solutions. Not necessarily for the government to do, the local government to do. There may be some learnings, but really what do we do as a community? Where's the shared responsibility to make change? It may be the best place to make that change. It's got nothing to do with the local government. It's got to do with the private sector, or it's got to do with the community benefits sector. And we may just get out of the way, or we may help to enable that. So I'll leave it at that and look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Thank you very much indeed. That's your experience. So we see from the Italian point of view, you have the Observatory, so you have a broader view of Italian smart cities.
Yeah.
What can you tell you about that?
Let me, first of all, I want to, to thank the ambassador and all the people here in the Ambasciata del Canada for this occasion, and then I want to apologize for my very poor English. I hope everybody can understand. First of all, we can say in Italy what has been done, and we had lots of events, lots of conventions, lots of congresses, lots of academic papers, and also some smart city projects. I think it's true that in our cities we started making something, using technologies to make people living better. And without with a strategic and holistic vision of smart city, I have to say also of city at all, because we started doing and promoting and financing small improvement using technology, for instance, in mobility, in lighting, in building, in energy. But just 2 or 3 years from the beginning of the debate here in Italy, we are finally I think we are having a strategic approach. It's kind of, like an inverted approach, like the one we heard before from Jennifer and now from Karen. But it's true that, as you can see, that we, as the Observatory in ANCI, the Italian Associations of Municipalities, we started collecting these projects, and we found out there are so many projects, so many interesting projects out there in our cities. We just started asking our cities, the ones who belong to the National Observatory. Now I think we are around 120 cities, and we collected, we found out, as you can say, 1,200, more than 1,200 projects. And I can say most of these projects are very, very interesting. What we have to do now to make these projects become a system in our country? I think we have to start again from 2 or 3 questions I've already heard before. One is, I think the most important is a word used maybe by all of 3 the speakers before me. It's something like friendly. We have to start again speaking about a city who is focused on people who live there. Because the supremacy of the urbanism or technology or know what else, it's a poorness for the people who lives in the city. Because I think here in Italy we have to face, for instance, before Jennifer said, the main asset in Toronto is foreign-born people. It's very shocking for us to hear this statement in this moment in Italy, when we are facing this, someone called it an invasion from abroad, from Northern Africa, while the percentage of foreign-born people in our cities is around 10–12%. In the northern Italy, maybe in Brescia, which is one of the cities with the higher foreign-born population, it's something like 14%. While in Toronto, half people is foreign-born, and they said it's the main asset of the city. It means we have to start again thinking about people, and for a moment, for a while, and not only thinking about infrastructure, technology, and so on. I think, of course, infrastructures are very important, but I want to focus both, physical infrastructure and social infrastructures, because again, if we don't start again thinking about what cities are for. Before Jennifer and Francesco, they said cities are for make people happy to stay there. Maybe then for Francesco, maybe we have to ask Aristotle if he knew Rome. It's an alchemy, how to understand why people still want to live here. No, I live here, so I know it very well. But maybe one word was missed before, and it's people stay in the city to work. We are forgetting this thing. That I think it's very, very important for us in Italy, for Italian cities in this moment, because we are looking at foreign model, Anglo-Saxon, Scandinavian models, where work is a problem, but maybe it's not an urban problem. We have to make our city start again thinking about how to preserve and to create jobs in the city. And it's not only thinking about new services, creative towns or creative people, you know, but it's all, it means also thinking about hard work industry, because I think without industry means not only heavy industry or big corporation, you know, it means for us in Italy, the very, very small companies, artisans, for instance, but we have to start from there. This means start thinking about how to build a specific identity for the city. I mean, I think cities, mayors, administrators, the business community in the city have to focus 3 or 4 or 5 main, you know, economic vocations for the cities, and invest upon these 3, 4, 5 economic vocations. It means we heard before about Torino, and maybe it's the city in Italy where this changing is more evident, you know. But also here in Rome and Milan, luckily today in Milan we have something is happening just now where this vocation maybe is reclaimed, you know. But I see Naples, I see many cities, and when I speak to mayors in these big cities, I'm not so sure they have a clear vision of the economic vocation of their territory. We are now in Italy, we are facing this huge institutional changing. We are creating le città metropolitane, metropolitan areas, which is a very new, completely fresh way of manage territory. And I think this is a very good, maybe one of the last occasions we have to think about the economic vocation, the economic sense of these big cities. Other thing is, I think other 2 or 3 words I heard before. Sorry, I heard before about technology. I think the main responsibility for mayors, for people who manage the city, is to know the potential of technologies. Because sometimes it still happens to me too when I speak to local administrations, to have, you know, a very deep distance between the technology potential about IoT, sensoring, I don't know what big data, for instance, and their needs. We still have a sort of, you know, alchemic idea of the technology, where when we can apply technology, things that they will go better, almost automatically, but it's not true. About data, about big data, open data, I think I know I'm focusing on weakness, but we have lots of potential. Another weakness is about the use of data, which for me in our cities is still is still very, very poor. You know, it's not applied to planning. We use data to know, sometimes to understand what's happening in the city, but there is still a huge distance between data analysis and the use for planning. And I mean, not only for urban planning, but also for social planning, which maybe is more important. And then, and the last point I want to focus is about public organization. I think if we want to do all the things I said, in a new way of planning, new capacity of data analysis, new vision, new economic planning, all these things are not at the moment, in the generality of cases, are not in the capabilities of people who are working for the local public administration. I think we have to learn new jobs, to have new competences. It's not easy at all, because of economic cuts. But this is very important. Basically, I think it's one of the lack is more risky for our cities, because if we think we can do like Toronto or like Torino without changing people who work in the local public administration, maybe we are dreaming. I hope that new resources from the new European fundings, which are coming in town, they will be concentrated upon this lack. I think it is still a matter we are not facing with enough attention.
Thank you very much, Paolo. So, some more remark or maybe some advice or error learned for the floor?
Well, I have to agree with everything that you've said. And to give you, I think one of you're talking about the strategic approach. I think the challenge today is maintaining a focus on strategy. When you have scarce resources, and all of our cities have scarce resources, when you have a skeptical public, an erosion of public trust in institutions in general, so you're up against that politically, and I think the pace of change, as well as the influence of social media, keeps distracting us onto the next shiny new object. And so being able to keep strategic focus in the public realm is, I think, a real challenge today. Since leaving municipal politics, I'm serving on a board of a financial institution, and I marvel at their ability to stay focused, that strategic focus. And lots going on, lots to distract, but not the same kinds of things that distract at a city level. So, and then just another, reflecting on your comments about economic strategy and the need to focus on jobs. Again, taking that strategic focus and really understanding what are the strengths of your community, and it's going to be different for every community, but what's your unique strength? So it's partly an internal reflection and looking at what your strengths are, but then I think it's also really important for cities today to understand their place in the world, and that's that comment about identity. So finding that place in the world means you have to then also go outside. And I think sometimes by going outside and engaging in these kinds of conversations or in different ways, you can also better understand yourself as well and further refine your identity and your strengths. And again, staying very focused on what those are in order to be able to attract the jobs to your community based on those strengths. So, and then finally, friendly cities, and we were calling it in Guelph, we launched a program over the last 4 years called Wellbeing, Guelph Wellbeing, Community Wellbeing. We used work, there's a Canadian Index of Wellbeing, so it's a national exercise that is intensely research-driven by universities across Canada, identifying ways to measure community well-being, and they've identified 8 domains within that, and have identified indicators within each of those. And so we took that national work and said, well, what happens if you apply it on a community level and look at it at a community level? And so we went through a program and we surveyed our community, we adapted their work at a community level. And it's now being looked at by other cities because of the strength of the approach. And right now that's in limbo. It's friendly city, happy city, well-being city. It's seen as fix the pothole. Don't talk to me about a happy city, but we're hearing here that those are issues that we need to talk about. So there's still a challenge, certainly, I think generally in Canada, of cities being able to have those conversations and push into that space without getting a backlash of why are we doing that. But I think there's a whole wealth of opportunity there for cities to really focus on well-being, happiness, friendliness, however you want to call it, and be very deliberate and very measured about how you do that work.
Thank you, thank you. We have a couple of minutes left, so if you have some remark or comment or question, please. No, I have one. Because, you said that is an asset or maybe not. So there is some difficult to face for the foreign people, as we said and Jennifer said. But in an ecosystem, all the actors, all the stakeholders should be included as an asset. So how can we do that? That's for you both.
For me? Oh,
yeah.
Well, I think, first of all, stopping talking about these people like a problem, for instance. I think we are struggling for the same problem. It's economic resources, you know, and so it's difficult to understand people who are coming in Italy now. They are trying to have a simple life as our grandparents they are looking for when they started to Canada, for instance, or to the US, to Argentina, for instance. Just 100 years ago. And so this is, at first, a cultural point of view. Then we have also to create opportunities, not for immigrants, but for people who are living in town. You know, we don't have to separate needs, but we have to consider people who live in town, who live in the city, have same problems. Before they said the same problems maybe they had 2,000 years ago. You know, so not. This is my opinion, of course. We don't have to create mental ghettos, you know. This is for immigrants, this is for all living people in city, this is for city users, so creating different services, different politics for different people. It's a bit risky. We have to look at the city, to the urban problems, to urban matters as a whole. And then maybe we have to plan for the weaker people in general, not only for newcomers, for immigrants, for that, but because maybe they have the same problems that children or disabled people they have.
Yeah. Would you have to add something?
Yeah, Canada is a country of immigrants and recent history, but it doesn't mean we still don't have to pay attention to it, because the immigration is coming from different parts of the world, and so we've taken a very proactive, in our community and other communities in Canada, have taken a very proactive approach to it. We have what we call a local immigration partnership, which brings together, again, many people from our community that deal with this on the front lines. And we work very hard to be that welcoming, friendly community for newcomers, working to help settle people into the community, working to help settle people with their children, because it's often families that are coming that are looking for a better life for their children. They're sacrificing incredibly for their children. So working to help get them settled, their children settled into the school system, and then working to help settle people into the workforce as well. So playing that very active role. And one of the things that has emerged, which is, one of the little things that has incredible impact, is every year we have Canada Day celebrations on July the 1st. We hold a citizenship ceremony at the Canada Day celebrations. And so some of our newest Guelph residents are sworn in as Canadian citizens. The change, usually Canada Day celebrations were very traditional Canadian attendees. Today you go to a Canada Day celebration and it's very mixed, and it's brought people in. And because they were introduced to Canada Day celebrations through their citizenship ceremony. So it's just one little example of how you can become a simple way of being welcoming and inclusive for people coming into your community.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So, thank you, Karen. Thank you, Paolo. Very good. Is there some question? No. Sorry, I didn't see it. So please, you can, of course.
Very short. Paolo Dameri, University of Genova. Thank you for your speech. I especially thank Paolo Testa, because he said a lot of very interesting things that I think need to be deepened a lot. From the academic point of view, I think that smart cities have now finished their first stage of life, and they need to pass to a more mature phase of their process. They need more finance, more performance measurement system, and I think also they need a national coordination, because till now smart cities are a bottom-up phenomenon that has born from the territories. It is interesting, but I think that a national, a government commitment to coordinate, to direct, to support the reuse of best practices, to lower the cost and to increase the break-even point, to reduce the break-even point for smart initiatives. It's necessary to create sustainable projects, to build business models for smart cities. What do you think about this?
that's my job, direbbe qualcuno. Yeah. No, it's true. I know also someone here in the house who tried to make a national policy when he was Minister of the Education here. And we are trying to work with the community of practice, both mayor and assessors and technician manager in the city which take part to the National Observatory. And we have some web-based communities. For instance, one is focused on the smart planning, we call it, strategic planning. So it's true, I do completely agree with you about the need of a national observatory, a national guide. It's true that when we tried to give to cities some services like community web-based community or something else, the response was not so high. Because it's also true that people managing cities have lots of emergency, of problems, and to have a strategic view, to have to be disposable to have your time spent in national arena, in national community, in national discussions is very difficult. One thing you said, for me, it's very important: reuse. We collected 1,200 and something projects with the principal goal to make people to understand what they can reuse of what other cities have done. We don't have time, you can see it by yourself. We have some picture for every cities, one picture for every project, and the thing I hope is in some way revolutionary. We are trying to collect, we are on the way to collect all administrative acts administration used to make these projects. So we are trying to remove an alibi, because every cities tend to say, I'm different. I can't use that solution, the city just over the regional border or just near to me, I don't know, they used, because I'm so different. I don't have the same problem. I have my peculiar communities or something. But if you have the acts, the contracts, all the papers the cities produced just to achieve the projects, just to achieve that solutions, I think the other cities they have many more alibi to say they are different. So we are on the way. I hope we can manage in some way.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
So,